From whence, observe further, Doctrine 3, when ministers preach doctrines of terror and condemnation, they ought to mingle with them doctrines of comfort and consolation. Therefore, as they are to blame who always preach doctrines of comfort, so likewise they are blameworthy who never preach comfort. A variety of doctrines sets off a man's ministry with a greater luster, beauty, and efficacy upon the hearts of the hearers. Consideration 4, note the method the apostle uses here. He first preaches terror before he preaches doctrines of comfort. If you live after the flesh, you shall die, but if you through the Spirit do mortify the deeds of the body, you shall live. From whence we may observe this doctrine, Doctrine 4, when Christians grow sensual, wanton, careless, and remiss in duties, laying aside that holy watchfulness and care they were wont to have, at such times as these, doctrines of terror are more needful and necessary than doctrines of comfort. Consideration 5, this is drawn from the addition of the phrase in the text, through the Spirit. The former part of the verse does not say, if ye through the power of the devil do live after the flesh, ye shall die. But here these words are added, if you through the Spirit. From whence observe Doctrine 5, a man may commit sin by his own strength, but he cannot mortify sin, but by the help of the Spirit. A single man can as soon destroy a whole army of men with his own hand as subdue one sin by his own power. Any man may wound himself, but every man cannot heal himself. You may commit sin, but you cannot purge out sin. A man may easily run down a hill, but it is very difficult getting up a hill. A man may easily commit sin, but he cannot mortify sin, except by the strength of the Spirit. Consideration 6, if you through the Spirit do mortify the deeds of the flesh, observe that Doctrine 6, in every regenerate man there are some deeds and reminders and relics of sin and corruption still left. Consideration 7, from the same phrase we may learn, Doctrine 7, Christians stand in need of mortification as well as other men. They have some unbridled passion or untamed affection or unruly lust that needs to be tamed as well as other men. Godly men need sometimes to be tamed and hampered and mortified as well as the worst of men in the world. Consideration 8, last, we may observe from these words this doctrinal conclusion, Doctrine 8, men may expect their condition in another world to be answerable to what their carriage and conversation is in this world. Are you a man who gives way to the vain and sinful desires and corrupt motions of your own heart? Let me tell you that as surely as you are alive this day, if you continue and go on in this course, you shall die, be damned, and be undone forever. If you live after the flesh, you shall die. But if you are a man who labors to bridle and keep under your unruly lusts and untamed affections, so that grace may get the victory over your corruptions, and so that sin may not rule and reign in your mortal bodies, you are on the ready way to obtaining life everlasting. Therefore I beseech you, my brethren, do not think or reason in this way with yourselves. If I shall be saved, I shall be saved, though I live never so profanely. And if I shall be damned, I shall be damned, let me do what I will to the contrary. Do not argue this way. For here you see, the Scripture tells you expressly that if you live after the flesh, you shall die. But if you through the Spirit do mortify the deeds of the body, you shall live. I have given you these 8 doctrinal conclusions from the general scope and aspect of the words. I shall now draw out 3 more doctrines which I intend to insist upon. If you live after the flesh, you shall die. From this phrase, observe Doctrine 1, living according to the world after the sinful motions and corrupt dictates of nature, without laboring to mortify and subdue them, is what will bring men to death and damnation. I add this phrase in the doctrine, without laboring to mortify and subdue them. Living after the flesh is put in opposition to mortifying the deeds of the flesh. If you live after the flesh without endeavoring to mortify and subdue the motions of it, this will bring you to death and damnation. Galatians 6:8. He that soweth to the flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption, but he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. By sowing to the flesh is meant following after the desire of the flesh, and such as do this shall thereby reap damnation. You who have your seed time in sin shall have your harvest in hell. You shall inherit damnation and hellfire forever. If you sow to the flesh, you shall of the flesh reap corruption. I shall speak to this doctrine only in this one sermon, because my intentions are principally to insist upon the other branch of the text. If ye through the Spirit do mortify the deeds of the body, ye shall live. Therefore I shall only answer one query and then give you a practical use. Question. Some may say, if it is so that those who live after the flesh must die, then how may I know and be assured and satisfied in my own conscience that I am a man who lives after the flesh, and that sin is not subdued and mortified in my soul? Answer. I shall give you 6 general means how you may know whether sin is unmortified in you or not, by your carriage both before and after the commission of any sin. First, by your carriage before the commission of any sin. When there is a longing and hankering desire in your soul to commit sin, and a studying and contriving how to act, hereby the Scripture describes an unmortified man. Psalm 36:4, he deviseth mischief upon his bed. He setteth himself in a way that is not good. When a man studies and contrives how to act out a sin and carry it out quietly and secretly, this is an argument. When upon such deliberate debates and rational consultations a man sets himself in a way that is not good, this is an argument that he has an unmortified heart. Therefore, if you plot, study, and contrive how to commit sin, it is a strong argument that the power of sin is not subdued and mortified in you. And second, a corruption is unmortified in the soul when a man is more eager to commit the sin to which he is tempted than he is to resist it. When a man is all on fire, as it were, and so eager in the pursuit of a lust, to the satisfaction of which he is tempted, that he casts away all thoughts of resistance, this argues such a man to have an unmortified heart. A godly man who has the power of mortifying grace upon his heart may fall into the same sins as you do, yet he encounters them and takes more care how to resist sin than to act it out. Now, it may be all your thoughts are taken up on how to satisfy your lust and commit this sin with secrecy, but not at all to resist it, and this is a sign of a very unmortified heart.